Good morning and welcome to the video for Monday, June the 15th. This is going to be a video for upcoming 7th graders. And today we're going to be talking about different tasks that you'll be asked to do in 7th grade working with percentages. So to begin with, one of the first things that they'll ask you to do is figure out what the amount of increase or decrease is between two given values. So I like to do that using money because sometimes that is the easiest way that we will see that in real life. So depending on what we're working on, either increase or decrease, we're essentially going to use the same process, but the second step is going to look different. Because anytime that we get to the part where we're going to divide to figure out the percentage, we have to use the original amount. So we have to know what the original amount is. So I'm going to start with this one on the right hand side, which is going to represent something that was $60 and it's on sale now for $50. And we want to figure out what the percentage decrease is for that item. So our amount of change would be $10, and then we would divide that $10 by our starting amount of $60. And that would give us an amount that we would then round up. So anytime we're working with percentage change, we want to round our answer. So 16.6%, we would round up to the next highest value, and that would give us a change of 17%. If I am working with something that started at $50, let's say that I make $50 for mowing a yard, and then I increase my rate to $60. Now that's a lot of money, but we could say it's a really large yard, or we could represent that by doing some other kind of task that you might receive $60 for. So if I take my original starting amount of $50 and then I use that in a subtraction problem, it's going to go second. So I've put a little red star above that. So my amount of change is still going to be $10, but I'm going to divide that by the amount that I was originally charging for that particular service so that I could figure out how much more I would be making for performing that service. That would be one way that we might see that. And so if I do that, I'm going to end up with a 20% increase compared to when I was working on this side having a 17% decrease. One of the other things that they will ask you to do is to find what our percent of change is. And so there are two different tasks that you would do with this. One of them is just going to involve the first step where you're just going to multiply. So let's say I get a certain amount of something and then I am going to increase that by a certain percentage, or I want to know what a certain percentage of that. We could also represent that with a value that is larger than 100%. So if I increase by 100%, I'm going to essentially double what I started with. If I take something that's more than 100%, then I would multiply by a value that would be greater than 1. So if I did 150%, then I would multiply by 1.5, and that would give me my new amount that I would add. Excuse me. So in this example, let's say I have 150 classroom books. That's probably not far off. It might actually be less than what I actually have. Over the next year, I want to increase my collection by 50%. How many books will I have at the end of the year? So to figure out the new number of books that I would be adding, I would take my total amount and multiply it by 50%, which would be represented as 0.5 or 5 tenths. When I do that, I would get 75 new books. I'm going to add that to the 150 books that I have. And so at the end of the year, I should have 225 books. If I'm just using that first step with this, I would go ahead and say that I have 150 books. I'm giving away 50% of my books. How many books would I be giving away? That would be an example of a problem that you might see. And you just need to do this first step to get the 75 books, and that would represent the number of books that I am going to be either adding or taking away. And then the last thing that we're going to ask you to do in that particular section of the book is to work with simple interest. This is handy even though it's not used as much as other types of interest. For instance, most of our loans Like, for instance, student loans. As you get ready to think about college, you're going to want to think about the fact that the interest rate that they charge on the loan is actually not calculated once per year. It's calculated more frequently than that. And that ends up being a situation where people end up paying on their loans for a very long period of time to actually make up that, even though it says that it's a certain percentage of an interest rate. And so let's say that I am borrowing $500 and that is going to be my principal. My interest rate per year, because we're working with simple interest, would be 5%. And so I could multiply 500 times 0.05 to get the amount that the interest would be each year. And so that is a type of problem that you would do. And that should give us $25. You can actually kind of cheat a little bit with numbers like this. If you know that 10% of 500 is going to be 50, half of that would be 5%, and that could give you your $25 without having to write out a multiplication problem. At some point in time in the future, not in this particular chapter or even grade, you will work with compound interest as well, which has a different formula. So when we're talking about interest for right now, we're just saying that it's calculated one time every year, and this is the amount that it would look like. So if you also wanted to relate this to saying you deposit $500 into the bank, and each year they add 5% to that as an interest rate that you gain, calculated once per year, then we could say that that $25 is the amount of interest that would be added to your account, assuming that that $500 stayed in the bank all year long. So those are some examples of things that you'll be asked to work with. I hope that's been helpful for you. I don't have anything specific that you can practice with for that, but one of the things that you could try if you take a look at different coupons and so forth. For instance, I get a lot of coupons for, let's say, Bed Bath & Beyond. Because I was registered there for my wedding. So I occasionally get coupons that say, well, you get 20% off of this particular item. So if you want to take a look at the cost of a particular item, find out what you would end up paying for that item. If you took 20% off, that would give you an idea of what that cost would be before tax. Hope that helps for you, gives you an idea of some things that you can work on. Hope your summer is going well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video, which will be a week from today.